Thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you here on Coresight Conversations. Everyone, I'm your host, Deborah Weinswig, and I am very honored to have as our guest the one and only Sarah Carson. She is the founder and CEO of Leota, a brand loved by many. And today we're going to discuss how the current environment is affecting the retail supply chain, how retailers such as herself have changed and adapted from week one of the crisis to now, and then how and when retailers should begin thinking about planning for the future, and kind of what kind of innovation are we seeing come out of this. As always, we'll have a transcript and video available on our site in 24 hours, and we will launch poll questions after we start the call. Lastly, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen during our conversation if you would like to ask any questions. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah to tell us a little bit more about herself and about Leota.
Good morning, everyone. Deborah, thanks a lot for having me. I'm Sarah Carson. I'm the founder and CEO of Leota, and we're a fashion brand formerly based in Manhattan, currently based in all of our apartments. And our company is about 8 years old. I'm a former investment banker, and I spent a lot of years cooped up in tight office lady clothes and realized there had to be a better way for women in fashion. So I decided to create a fashion brand around fashion that's as comfortable as wearing jeans and a t-shirt or yoga pants, but is actually appropriate for women's lifestyles today. And I chose to target a customer base that I feel is very underserved, and that's that 40+ market of women. I think a lot of brands are trying to sell youthful fashion to everyone, and given our lifestyles today, I think we need fashion that really works as hard as we do. So everything's machine washable and wrinkle free. And we've been able to build like quite a nice e-commerce business as well as a wholesale business. And we are a bootstrapped company, and we are working our way through this COVID crisis. So I look forward to this conversation.
Great. I have so many questions for you. So can you define bootstrap for us? What does that mean? And from that perspective, how is this kind of crisis impacting Leota and yourself differently than someone who maybe had gotten VC funding?
Mm-hmm. Well, bootstrap means that we've really taken no outside funding. Our business is factored, so we have that support. And I think one positive thing about being a bootstrap business is we know exactly how to be as nimble and lean and profitable as possible, because the whole idea of losing money to grow a business has never really been an option for us. So I think companies like mine are very well positioned to respond faster and to weather through, whatever comes pretty well. And that's what I've seen from in my community of other businesses like ours, is just a willingness to see, identify, and figure it out and act very quickly.
You talk about this market that you discovered, which I think is very uncrowded, and you don't hear that a lot of times these days. How has the consumer reacted? And what's really interesting, in your opening comments, we're definitely going to come out of this wanting more comfort in our lives. It goes back to, nobody's going to want to wear the suits that we've been wearing to the office. Mm-hmm. How does that, kind of affect your business? And have you seen any kind of changes already as people are thinking differently about what they wear?
Absolutely, because we're all at home. I mean, it's so intimate. We're pretty much at home together all the time. And so we get to know a lot more about each other, and it's really challenging to keep any kind of gloss of perfection under these circumstances. And you don't really need to wear all of the usual things. If I had to go into the city every day, it'd be very different. So that blurring of the lines between loungewear, day wear, work wear, it's all the same. And luckily with Leota, we're kind of the OG loungewear for day. So people want that.
That should be your new tagline. You were really one of the first to talk to me about this idea of body positivity. And I feel since we had some early conversations, it's continued to gain traction and importance as it relates to retail, the consumer. I think there's a real connection point there. Can you talk about how you kind of ended up on that as a key talking point and a key foundation for Leota, and how do you see that continuing to change as we're getting more intimate and we're all in each other's homes?
Mm-hmm. Fashion has really had to respond quickly to the rise of social media and everybody having a microphone pretty much. And so power is not only the purview of the young, thin, white, and male at this point. And so fashion has really had to catch up with that. And it has to be more inclusive. And that is a reason why I've really been passionate about empowering people by saying, hey, you're beautiful the way you are. We're going to have your back. It's not the other way around where you need to change. So I think that's a really important difference in how I sell my brand compared to others.
There's an important message there, and this idea of we love you for whom you are. It sounds very authentic and very much about relationship building. Can you talk about the demographics of your customer and if you see that changing, and what are maybe some of the challenges that your customer is facing right now during the crisis, and how does that change what she wants to buy or where?
Mm-hmm. My customers are women, and most of them are moms. So they are at home with their spouses and all their kids and their dog. And I don't know about you, but every phone call I've been in, I hear the dog barking and the kids are screaming, and we're trying to talk about business. And I think that's what women are experiencing right now. It's impossible to be one of the guys in this environment with what's going on. So I think honoring that and respecting that, and I think previously we were sort of able to pretend a little bit more, and that's just not the case anymore. And so my gals are really looking for authenticity. They want to know the truth, and they want to know about me. They want to know what's the story behind what you're doing. And I think it's, from a brand perspective, it's not so much about conversion right now, because the fact is people aren't really shopping that much, and we have to accept that, but they are consuming the things that we're producing. And so telling stories about why we exist, why our product matters, why we have their back, and how, is something that we've gotten an amazing response to on social, on email. So it's been a really positive response.
What are you seeing as you look at the global retail landscape as it relates to your customer, and how is she responding differently across different geographies?
Could you repeat that question, Deb?
Yeah, so we discussed, kind of before the call, you do have customers globally. How do you see them responding differently, whether it's from a social media perspective or even just a buying perspective right now, as the world is uneven in terms of where we are with the existing crisis?
How are they responding differently regionally?
If they are.
It's been very consistent. It's been very consistent, regardless of whether they're in a majorly hit area, whether she's going to work or not going to work. My experience of how customers have responded is that they all feel like they're in this crisis, whether they have family members involved or not. And so I think everyone's behavior is really affected. I'm seeing much less shopping online. I'm seeing much more engagement online. And so leaning into that relationship building is really important right now. It's almost all we can do, so that when people start making money again and people can shop again, we'll be one of the first to recover at that point.
And would you have expected to see greater sales online versus engagement, or would you have expected to see both? How are things playing out differently than you would have expected?
Well, originally, from a supply chain perspective, that's been the biggest surprise to me. So at first I thought that we produce everything in China right now. At first I thought China was our problem. And earlier this year, we were doing everything possible to get as many goods out of China as soon as possible around Chinese New Year. And then as the virus spread, we realized, well, the US is actually our problem. So working as fast as possible to get ahead of that has been really the biggest challenge. I definitely expected that sales would be reduced. I mean, it makes sense in a global crisis like this that it would really be back to basics, and people don't need to be shopping for all these, pseudo luxury items right now. So that was not a surprise. The next question is when that opens up again.
Yes, we want your crystal ball.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that authentic brands like Leota are the ones that customers are still going to want to do business with. And of course, when it comes to things like food items and all the necessities, you can buy those anywhere. But I think a brand that's the right price and appropriate for people's lifestyles will continue to be in demand.
Have you, right, there's been this huge demand for PPE. We've heard it, throughout the world, throughout the US, especially those of us who are in the New York area. It's been even louder. How has Leota been working, kind of with the national, local government on PPE, and what do you see as just some of the challenges?
One really exciting pivot that I've seen is people in our industry really using our skills and international relationships to bring life-saving PPE to the US. So I was contacted by the state of New York in their desperate attempts to get the ventilators and masks and respirators. And so I decided to really help them out because it's a confusing business. I mean, we do this every day, importing and exporting. It's easy, but from the government, municipality, and other companies' perspective, it's really new, and the pricing and the air freight charges are sort of unpredictable right now. So I've stepped in to make that easier for governments, local governments around the country.
Well, some of the challenges are, as we've spoken to the governments and whatnot, even finding ocean freight and air freight capacity, even if they can find the goods to import them. And then some of the challenges are, the documentation and product being held up at the docks. Where have you seen the greatest challenge in the PPE supply chain? And where have you seen the greatest challenge in this environment in your own supply chain?
In the PPE supply chain, the biggest challenge is getting the allocations from China. So if you have the relationships like I do, you can get the allocation. But if you don't, then you just get in line. So, and everything, of course, is controlled sort of on the government level there. So that's been the biggest challenge that I've been able to solve. And then on the supply chain for Leota, the biggest challenge has been, well, changed. First it was getting the goods itself, and now it's all the cancellations. So what is the meaning of a purchase order anymore? I mean, these are huge shifts in our industry where we on trust produce a lot of product, and then if the demand kind of gets swept out from under you, what are we going to do with all that stuff? So we're, like many brands, sitting on a lot of fabric, raw materials, partially sewn goods in China that we don't have anywhere to ship right now.
I know that sustainability has been very important to you as well in light of this, kind of fabric, half sewn merchandise and merchandise that's not selling. How do you think about Leota from a sustainability perspective? And how does that play into your strategy for the rest of this year and honestly for next?
I think we're forced as an industry to be much smarter about how much stuff we're buying and how much stuff we're throwing away. And it's always shocked me how a lot of brands will incinerate their extra inventory at the end of the year. They would rather destroy a garment or put it in the landfill than have somebody wear it. So, I mean, I've always been a huge advocate of, well, get those clothes on women who need it. So we've always donated our excess inventory at the end of the year. And all brands, including Leota, we're going to be just developing less. We're developing less. So all of those goods that we currently have in our warehouse, well, we'll ship it the second half of the year. We'll ship it next spring. This whole concept of fashion just being done in an instant, I think that's over. People need investment pieces that are going to last forever. So my view is that if it was something cute and useful that's going to be a great investment piece now, then it'll stay that way in 6 months or 1 year. I mean, luckily, I'm not a super high fashion, trying to sell some, shin pads for day wear, or just things like that are a flash in the pan.
So not only from your own business perspective, but what measures have you seen other bootstrapped or just small businesses take for consumers who are loyal to them to help support them? We joked earlier about this idea of like Leota dollars, but, and I understand, right, there is, PPE is critical, but also keeping small business in business is critical for the economy to recover. So how can people support you, and how have they supported others?
I found that our customers are really rooting for us. So if we're authentic and truthful about how this crisis is impacting us, look, we're not selling some crucial like life or death item. I mean, it's still dresses, it's still like comfortable clothes. Our customers are still buying a little bit here and there, and they want to put their dollars with brands that they're really rooting for. And so by us telling a truthful, clear story about the struggles that our business is going through really has helped our customers say, like, you know what, we're going to put our dollars with you, Leota. And then we've also partnered with other brands to give away products to healthcare workers and try and really support them and bring some visibility to really the risks that they're taking on behalf of everybody's health.
Yeah, no, there is really this kind of idea of giving back and helping right now. The retail industry is in a very unique position to do that. It's just the retail industry is also one of those that's, kind of having the greatest impact as well. It's interesting. We just got the poll results back, and this idea of demand forecasting has continued to be a consistent thread. Almost 50% of those who responded said that their largest pain point or greatest pain point during this time is forecasting. And we're hearing it not only for, let's call it the next 3 months, but it's for holiday, it's for even 2021. And what are your thoughts around that?
Our historical data, we might as well just delete the file because it's useless. It's totally useless. And leaders right now are faced with this really challenging decision of just pretty much making it up.
That's true. Well, I had a great conversation today, and I asked someone, like, how do you kind of think about this environment? They're like, it's kind of like 01 and 08 combined. I'm like, okay, 01, we had an e-commerce bubble burst. in '08 we had a housing crisis, and this is like a global pandemic. I don't know how, like, and maybe it's kind of this emotional feeling of like '01 plus '08 kind of equals 2019, 2020. But it is interesting, right? There's no playbook written. And so and I don't know about you, I feel like every day is like a new year almost in terms of what we learn and the pivots that we all have to make. And I can only imagine what it's like for, for a small business. It's, usually planning 6 to 9 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
I love this question. So how important do you think extended sizing will continue to be to the consumer during and post COVID-19? We had, almost 75% said that, still incredibly important for brands to offer. I would love right. Everyone has a different number in terms of the average size of the US customer. But I will tell you what I have heard from several retailers who are multi-brand, that the most requested size in 2020 so far has been a size 22. And that would tell me that, the product that's being made for the most part isn't addressing consumers' needs. How do you think that, first of all, what do you see in terms of extended sizing, and how do you think about it from a Leota perspective, right? How are the sizes, and kind of what body shape size figures are you, kind of focused on?
We've been sizes from day one. So we've made size extra small to 5X before it was popular. And I think that's because it addresses the actual consumer. It addresses the woman who's actually out there buying. And I've never really understood why most brands just focus on smaller sizes when that doesn't reflect the demographic that we serve or could be served, or could be serving. So I think that being size inclusive is, of course, going to continue to be super important. Our customer base is not changing. From a brand perspective, though, and from a financial perspective, every single additional size or additional SKU that you're developing, it costs money.
Yeah.
And those are the exact things that we're pulling out our spreadsheets, and we've got our red pen out, and we're just crossing all that stuff off. So it will still have to be a values-based decision if we are size inclusive going forward, because it costs money.
Yeah, it's an excellent point. And then the last question was, how important do you think sustainability and fashion will continue to be to the consumer during and post-COVID? 50% said 100% still incredibly important for brands to offer, but it's maybe half as important as it was, because there's a lot of other challenges. Just staying in business is one of them. I guess that's probably a little bit higher than I even would have thought. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Sarah?
It's definitely higher than I would think, because I think sustainability still is a nice to have, not a need to have from the shopper perspective. And it's, from the data I've looked at, it's not what she looks at as the main decision point when a purchase is made. And this is unfortunate, because I believe in it, and we all definitely have to be focused on it. But I think we might see some corners being cut by brands in this way, because it is more expensive to be a sustainable brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and it'd be interesting to hear, some of this inventory that hasn't sold from, this season. This idea of pack away is certainly a more sustainable way to approaching the supply chain than, as you mentioned, this idea of incineration. I am talking to more brands who are looking at alternative ways to, reuse, recycle, repurpose the product that they have in their physical stores right now. And I do think a lot of it has to do with, while the consumer, for them to buy a sustainably made garment might be less important now, I do think that they hold the retailers and the brands very accountable for acting and behaving in a sustainable manner.
Definitely. And one thing we've done is and we're not, I do a lot of things with Leota to make sure that we're not creating waste, that we're donating any excess product that we have, like I mentioned. But one thing we're doing is we're partnering with a company called Silk Roll that is essentially an online thrift store. And even though there is all this extra clothing out there that supposedly people are throwing away, all this fast fashion every day, but a lot of these companies that are trying to move that line actually have a big challenge with getting inventory. So we've partnered with a company where if our customer, when they place an online order, if they send their lightly used clothes to this online thrift store, they get a discount on Leota products. So this is a way where we're selling new stuff. We're also encouraging our customers to keep their product in the market as opposed to just throwing it away like a lot of people do.
And I mean, from a circular economy perspective, that really is pretty amazing in terms of the steps you've taken. I want to turn, we do have audience Q&A, and if anyone else has questions, please drop them into the Q&A now. All right, how are you balancing the growth of the business with the lack of ownership trends?
That's a great question, and I love that we now have the option of renting something versus buying it. I don't think the rental business has really proven itself to be something that's sustainable. There's so much money and time and frankly chemicals going into dry cleaning, at least on the fashion side. I think it remains to be seen. There is a lot of demand for the rental business, and a lot of brands actually benefit from that. We do a lot of business with companies that have a rental business, like Rent the Runway and Glenny B, and of course Castle is offering that to a lot of retailers. I think that'll continue to be important. The demand is there from the customer perspective. It's just a matter of kind of making the economics work on the back end.
Definitely. What are you seeing in terms of changes in relationships between landlords and tenants, and what's the future of the mall?
I'm glad you asked about the relationship between landlords and tenants. And I don't know anyone who's paying their rent right now.
Yeah.
So I think everyone has had to come to the table to have a discussion in ways that I haven't seen before in my career. And I've seen a lot of positive partnership-y sounding conversations between the tenants and landlords. So I think there's going to be a lot of deals made in the coming months, because there's no doubt that that relief is really required from the retailers, and landlords still need someone there.
Yeah.
And the future of the mall, yeah.
I'm sure the face of the inline tenants will change. Hopefully the anchors either get the stimulus that they need or get the support they need from, the markets to continue to stay open. But, we're definitely going to have less malls, less department stores, less specialty. And it'll be interesting to see, right? This, crisis is driving a lot of innovation. I mean, right, we're going to see new forms of retail, and, businesses like yours, which, you're very fortunate you have the D2C component and also the wholesale component. I really think that the market for a company like Leota continues to grow and expand. One question, in terms of what are you expecting from resort, maybe you can just, help us understand, that time period. And then what does resort, once again, all the models are out the window, but what does resort tell you about holiday, and how do you think people order based on what they see for resort?
What I'm seeing is fourth quarter is going to be very, very soft. A lot of retailers are sitting on so much inventory that they're telling me we may not even be buying anything for resort. So I'm seeing that there'll be an opportunity for us to use that sustainable approach, sell a lot of the products that we weren't able to sell right now due to all the cancellations. Those are things that we can move towards the end of the year. And I'll be looking for retailers to come to market, even if it's a virtual market. I mean, those will be sort of the signs that things are waking up a little bit for the second half of the year. Right now, I don't have any of those signs.
Very helpful. We have another question. I may take a pass at answering this too. To what extent do you see technology such as AI, big data, be useful in the current scenario? Well, my response, and I'd love to hear yours. I mean, AI learns based on data, right? And modeling. I mean, this is all new. And so it's, you know, from what I continue to hear from a lot of the big AI companies is there are no models built to handle this current environment. And, you know, so I found talking to retailers such as yourself and brands that there's a lot more about demand forecasting, as we heard in the poll questions, a little bit less around AI. Big data is always important because you want to make sure that, you know, that you have what's needed and you can analyze that. I don't know, what are your thoughts?
I think there's going to be a lot of questions around whether big data and AI are going to work for us. I know that the whole point is that it learns quickly and it's going to spit out new results. How quickly can it learn given this environment? Like when you said, my view from morning in a day to evening in a day, I've probably gone through 3 strategic shifts during that time frame. So
well, it's funny because I've helped a lot of people with their scenario analyses, and they're all changing so dramatically week to week. And it's not this idea of like guardrail to guardrail, although it really is. Mm-hmm. We're truly building what we think are the right 3 or 5 scenarios, but the environment is changing so quickly and rapidly. And, you know, who knows, do we see the middle of the country open up in the next 4 weeks and then the coast open up in the next 8? And, you know, as that continues to get pushed out, right, and we don't unfurlough people and we have a growing unemployment rate, the models and the scenarios, they literally change within the day. I'm
redoing mine every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day it changes. And then that flows through to the entire supply chain on a daily basis. So
yeah, no, so one question, because I think you're uniquely qualified to answer this, is from a design perspective, how are you, right? Because you're still designing product and thinking about product, whether it's for holiday or for spring 21. Have you changed how you're designing your product and how your whole supply chain works?
Absolutely. Well, one, we're designing a lot less. And I think now, particularly in this environment, I mean, one reason why Leota has been so successful is that I've said we're gonna win in one thing, and we're gonna be the best at comfortable wash and wear fashion that you can do anything in, and that's it. And of course, as entrepreneurs and as creatives, we want to be doing everything. Of course, we want to be doing swimwear and outerwear and children's and all this stuff. And where I've misstepped has always been where I've tried to put too many resources into something that's new or different or off course from this main thing. So from a design perspective, we're going to keep the main thing, as they say, and really be important in that core product and design fewer, better styles.
Great. We have 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. Is the new normal how important are stores versus online? Will stores continue to be important for fashion retail?
Well, yes, absolutely. I know we're having this kind of doomsday conversation right now, and my prognosis is terrible and all that, but look, shopping in stores is awesome. I mean, people love that. I love it. I mean, you want to experience product in real life. There's no replacement for that yet. And so absolutely that will continue to be important. People still want to experience the product, and there's only so much you can do on your screen. I don't know when that's going to be, but I still very much believe in an in-person retail experience.
Well, the positive is if we look at what's happened in China, we are already back to about 90-95% of retail is open. I spoke to a few landlords this morning, and they said, well, their centers aren't 100% open, sales are over 100%. And so the consumer's coming back strong, they're spending, there's a desire for fashion and for trend. And so we have a market that, is up and running, and it's come back, I think, stronger than anyone expected. So that is a positive. All right, we have a ton of questions that just came in. In the new normal, will there be a different approach to employees, i.e. recruiting, training, communicating, and developing?
Wow. I think that the current unemployment situation has been really, really hard, but at least in my experience, it has really flattened things between leadership and the team, because there is this sense that we're all experiencing these challenges together and everyone's got to step it up. So I think that this will end up ultimately having a really positive effect on how management and employees kind of deal with each other in a much more open, honest, transparent way. I think everyone's BS meter is just really sensitive right now, and so we have a real opportunity to be open and honest. And I think I've seen a lot of companies do a great job with that, and it's built a lot of trust and long-term goodwill with teams.
So we have a few questions. I'm going to try and pull them together on
Okay.
For, as you think about the smaller retailers, the boutiques you're selling to versus the larger retailers, how are you, and once again, you're a, as you said, bootstrap company, how are you working with them differently in this environment? And actually, how are they working differently with you in this environment?
Well, everyone's had to be a lot nicer to each other.
That may be the quote of the day. I love that.
Because you'd have to be a totally heartless human being to hear from a retailer that's probably a mother-daughter boutique in Cleveland or who knows what, and they're like, look, we're closed, we can't take the product. I mean, what am I going to say? Mm-hmm. I think previously I would have said, well, I'm sorry, we don't take cancellations, what can we do? But at this point, we've all been really working to find a win-win, or a partial loss, as the case may be. It reminds me a lot of landlord-tenant conversations where both have had to give a little ground.
Great. All right, I'm gonna close it out with this because we have so many questions coming in. Maybe you already touched upon this indirectly, but how do you manage tough consumer buying behavior at a difficult time when people are not in the buying mode? I think you talked about social media, so maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
I think it's a time for relationship building right now, and it's a time to think about what are the 3 ways that we can build goodwill with our customers. And yeah, all of those metrics still matter, conversion, and we want to make sure that we're not wasting too much money acquiring customers and everything. But the focus right now is building that relationship. And I've gotten a great response from my customers on social media, on email. They want to hear from me and they want to talk about it. So that's been a successful way for me to approach this time when she may be shopping, but she wants to get to know us better.
Great. Well, for those of you on the line whose questions we didn't get to, I apologize, and I will happily connect you with Sarah. Sarah, do you want to just leave us some closing thoughts, comments, and how can we all support Leota?
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think bootstrap businesses like ours and small businesses like ours that really employ more than half of workers in the U.S., we are all really in need of government support. So those PPP loans are going to be incredibly important for companies like mine to bridge the gap between where we are now and where the positive ending that we're inevitably going to get to. So I would love for you to follow us at Leota New York. And if you need some comfortable loungewear for your work at home days, I'm your girl.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. We really enjoyed this. Look forward to having you back again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.